Welcome to the AI Assisted Organization podcast, hosted by myself, Piers and Aalok, my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla, who's currently packing his bags.
Actually, I'm a bit of a last minute, so I'll do it later on.
You're off to India.
Yeah, so it's UK first, because we've got a Microsoft event on Tuesday, which we're on the panel for, and then Wednesday off to India, so really looking forward to that, Mumbai.
Awesome. Well, I'm in the sunny northwest. It's not so sunny. And we're in London next week. We've got quite a few events coming up, actually. Alok's got a big event with Microsoft on the retail side of things. I'm AI Transform in Warwick on Wednesday as well, giving a keynote.
For AI transformation, that'd be cool.
So there's quite a bit going on. So as we mentioned last week in our 50th episode, which was very exciting, just got over the partying, is that we're going to change the format slightly. So we're going to talk about news, but rather than traipse through lots of news, which you can go and look for yourself, but it's all over the internet, to be quite frank. We got to pick out a few sort of big things that just piqued our interest over the last week or two. We're trying to do the podcast weekly, but it might be for 2 weeks, depending on where we are and what we're doing. Alok's in India, for example, and so one of the things let's get into it then. So one of the things we saw this week, actually, I thought was really interesting, and is the HeyGen avatars. Yeah. So you've seen now where you can have your voices. You can have your voice, or you can have existing voices. You can create avatars of yourself, obviously. But what they're doing now is creating, Synthese have done this as well, is avatars you can just use, different sort of styles, people, ethnicities, gender, all that kind of stuff. And then they can, in real time, react to your prompts. If you've got a prompt, rather than responding in chat and text, it's a human responding and talking. So these are pretty good, actually. And you can see where this is going in terms of completely automating, for example, customer service interactions. But you're not convinced they're quite there yet.
No, so it's just going to make it simple. Like these avatars are basically a digital twin. So it could either be of yourself, like, so you've got like a video of you and it can be talking in any language or in anything, and that's like a kind of pre-recorded one. And now what you're talking about is interactive ones, where basically you could have a video of you, Piers, and you could talk to it and it answer your questions back and stuff like this. And then they've even got the ability where it could even sit on Zoom. So you could have a digital version of you on Zoom meeting or whatever like this. But so you think like all the people that basically either have their camera off will now just have like a pretend avatar of them there, basically. And then all the people that like don't interact much in meetings, they could potentially even have their digital twin to not interact much in meetings. But I'm joking, basically. But I'm also
I know you're joking, but when we talk about when we talk about policy and governance in organizations, these are things you need to think about: is can people send an avatar to a meeting?
Correct, and pretend that they're working and stuff like that. But anyway, that's a different story. Like, but the point to go here is that like, it's not quite there in terms of being seamless, like in terms of being smooth and flowing and as if it was a person. However, it's not going to be long before it is. So it's going to be like, we're entering almost like a kind of era of, you can't really trust too much about what you see and different things like this. So it raises all sorts of questions, basically. Personally, I think that like, it's good to have these tools and you can use it as like your twin and explain it to your twin and whatever like this, but it's not going to pass off as you yet. But it's super interesting. I'll tell you.
Yeah. And as we all say, AI today is the worst ever going to be. Give it 12 months. Let's move on. So quick one. If you use ChatGPT Plus, I think it is, you can now download the desktop app. I think it's more, you've got to be a Plus user. And it's quite good. So I've been using it this morning, actually. And it's good because it rather than flipping in and out of browsers, you can have different windows. So it's easy to sort of include in your workflow. And there's a few extra sort of tools in there. So it's definitely worth going to have a look at that. If you are a power user, to try and use the desktop apps, they're pretty good. And then the last one really I thought was really interesting is that, and it's kind of news, but it's actually a really important point, is that we spend all our lives, talking to customers, doing events, giving keynotes, giving talks, so sharing our view of where this is going and at what speed. And we talk about exponential growth. And I think Sam Altman, who's a CEO of and a co-founder actually of OpenAI, and the maker of ChatGPT, he said in some talk a while ago that when you're on an exponential curve, you stood on it. If you look backwards in the past, it looks quite kind of flat. When you look forwards, no matter where you are on the curve, it looks vertical. It looks vertical. And it's really hard. We always say it's really hard for us to understand that and that pace of change because we never experienced it before. We haven't. It can be mobile, maybe ChatGPT, that kind of the growth of that, or maybe TikTok, for example. We're beginning to experience it. We still don't fully understand it. And basically what he said, look, he's kind of given up on his mission to try and explain to people that this technology is going to be a game changer for humanity. And even, I always say that even if it stopped today, like literally today, at the end of this podcast,
just implement all the technology that's available.
Exactly, and it was implemented properly with its current technological state, that would change a lot of things. Exactly. But what he's saying though is, do not underestimate what is coming. And if there's one person on this planet who knows, it's not Aalok or myself, it's him.
Yeah, no, and I've put two things here, right? So one is what we're going to be talking about in the second part of the episode, which is all about like how do you actually unlock the power of it in your own business, basically, because that's a lot, having custom stuff, not generic stuff, and we'll talk about that. But the second thing, obviously, is that like the capabilities are going to be just astronomical, right? Like, and if already this thing's happening, I mean, I'll give an example. Like, there's so many kind of like technologies that we use as part of like our agents and different things, and like I always keep a track on like what's developing, how are things going, what's Nvidia doing, what's Microsoft doing, and what's open source options. And I came across an open source option for I'm not going to say, but it's a component that we use, and I was like blown away by that, basically, right? And I was like, okay, that's incredible, because like if this capability can be proved at scale, you can unlock even more power and performance and accessibility for everyone. So everybody can get like an upgrade, basically, right? Like, because otherwise those things are kind of more expensive. And honestly, like already with the kind of capabilities that are there right now, you could stop and you could transform everything, because most people are stuck and most people are just using a bit of GPT or this, and honestly, it's just insane, like what's coming. But I think the key thing is you have to understand now that, like, just like you said, it's vertical, and you need to kind of get on it, because you're not going to be able to, like, you can't adapt to climbing if you haven't even started walking. You understand, right? And you have to be in the game and have your data connected and have iteration and have your team aligned, because there's a whole load of psychology, there's a whole load of alignment, there's a whole load of organizational, where are we going, what are we doing, what does this mean, basically, to kind of put in place before you can even do those things. So, but I fear that many businesses are going to just get caught off guard and just get swept.
Yeah, and you're seeing OpenAI, it's kind of an alpha state. They've got a sort of an agentic framework, so actually stitching these things together, because that's when they become really powerful. And we kind of do that now, but eventually they're going to collaborate in a room, a virtual room, like humans, just talk about things and decide who's going to do what and in what order and what priority, and then they're going to go off and do it. Right now, it's not quite there yet.
Or review your bank statement. Well. Review your bank statement every single month and see, like.
We'll come on to that on the AI of the week. I can do that in quite a humorous way. But yeah, review anything. So this change is coming. We don't quite know how quickly, but with any technology, it always tends to take a little bit longer. Normally it's years. This is probably months. And then when it arrives, it typically grows and has a much more profound impact than people initially expected.
I mean, did you see that demo example? There's where you there's a photo, and then you can have hyper realistic facial animations, facial expressions from the photo. Basically, like the ability to like take someone's picture and then make a video of them saying something or looking like they said something. It's already very powerful, basically, right? Like,
yeah, it's uncanny that, because most people are doing it with are no longer with us. So it's quite uncanny, actually. Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing. So let's move on. So look, if you're new to our podcast or implement AI, so Aalok and I started a business 18 months ago, and we essentially work with SMEs, companies of all sizes really, to implement AI. So we have a platform of managed AI agents. So we'll talk about this in a moment, actually, where we help you to understand the technology, deploy it, and we kind of work with you to manage it. We're like your outsourced IT HR department for virtual workers. So we're going to talk a bit about that today, actually, in terms of our theme. If you're new to the podcast, please follow us. And also, if you're, a lot of people stop me in the street or events quite often, literally say, love the podcast, love the conversations we have, which is fantastic. But please leave a review. Really helps us, especially on Apple. A few words, take a few minutes of your time. You can actually do it while you're listening to us, actually. So please do that. And go to our website, sign up for AI Insider newsletter. We're going to be following it up probably starting this week now. We're back on the road with the podcast. And we have a training academy. Often the first step in AI, really, in implementing is training. Is your senior leadership or working group is actually, or the people that need to, for example, maybe people in marketing, they need to understand it. If you don't understand it, you can't use it. It's a tool. So you need some training on it as well. And also, don't forget, if you want to see demos or read white papers, go to the website. I'll maybe put it up there, and click on. I'll put it on. There's a QR code there. Go to our website. We've got a resource center. We've got an AI hub where you can see demos and actually see this thing in action. So our mottos tend to be: we help you put AI to work, which is what we all want to do. But also, Alok's favorite one is grow your workforce, not your payroll. Brilliant.
Exactly. So yeah, so just to kind of touch on that, like the two main ways we help companies would be like, one was like Piers said, like we've got the team managed agents that can help you kind of get production straight away and be productive. But the other way is like for organizations which have, slightly bigger, have more team members, we help you like align, create a working group, and we have a transformation program where we can actually help you with AI Activate to get things in place and really start to build your own AI operating system and stuff like that. So yeah, depending on whatever size the organization you are as an SME, we've got different solutions for you guys.
Yeah, help you step onto the exponential curve, basically. So this week's theme, we keep coming back to this, and this is kind of what Sam Altman's also talking about, kind of what we do as well, is tools. Let's tools versus AI agents. So we'll call it agents for the purpose of the podcast. We'll keep saying AI agents. So agents and tools often are software tools. We're all used to those.
Generic.
Quite generic, yeah. It can range from your productivity suite, your Microsoft 365, or you use Google Apps. I don't fully understand Google Apps. I'm more of a Microsoft person. We're also a Microsoft partner. But tools often are software as a service, SaaS. And we've got we're sort of looking at scaling up, implementing AI now, and looking at raising money. We're writing a business plan. And there's a great chart in there. We've got a diagram. And it's got a software as a service kind of a layer of all the applications you use. You could 20, 30 in some businesses. And then you wonder why you pay per seat. When you look at the diagram, you pay per seat because there's a human operating it.
Yeah, that needs to use it.
Yeah, every single seat is a human. And then the next sort of part of the diagram is you've got this sort of software layer, which increasingly won't be SaaS, it'll be AI agents, but you no longer have the humans using it. So you're going to see that model change. So we're going to talk a bit for about half an hour now, about humans versus agents. What's the difference? So I'll tee it up, Aalok, and then you go into the detail. So what you're seeing is essentially most software as a service, the tools you use. If you think about what it is, it's a flat database, 2D database, traditional database, with a UI, and you have to input data, transpose data, look at it, it does something or just organizes something, and then you understand it, and then you go off and do something else. So it's kind of it's quite a simple mechanism, really, and that's going to change. So we're going to see the model change, maybe move to consumption, not seats, and move away from humans being the interacting layer with that software.
Yeah, so let's also like look at it in a dimension of general and specialized. So like general is like basically like any kind of tool which may be like any search box, any kind of like CRM, any kind of like, presentation software will now have like some AI box where you can type in anything and it will create something for you or do something basically. That's general. That's a bit like spell check and everyone's going to have access to that. Just in the same way like someone can write into GPT, oh, please write me social media posts for the next 3 weeks or whatever like this. You'll get some
summarize this. You see a lot of software now.
Some average stuff out of it, and that's fine, right? Like, and you should still use those things, but it's the prompts you use and the skills you use, and that's all training stuff. But that's general, basically. So that's tools, okay? So what we're talking about on the other side of it is agents or specialized tools. Like specialized agents, basically, in your business, because the whole point there is like you want, like for example, in your business, you don't just have a team of random people that just do things the way they want to do things, basically. You have people trained in the way your company has it, the vision, the goals, the style, the tone of voice, the tools you use, the service delivery, the expectation, the customer success. All of that is pointed and organized for what you want. So in the same way, you need to have AI agents and an AI operating system, which is designed that way, basically, which will then actually help you get those things done. For example,
well, let's say the AOS to the end to sort of wrap it all up. I think that's quite important. But the point you're making is that AI agents are just like they're humans in a way, as Aalok said. You've got to onboard and train them. You wouldn't recruit somebody and just say, right, welcome, off you go.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, crack on. But also, how? What am I doing? When am I doing it? Why am I doing it? What's
how quickly do you want it done? What standard do you want it done?
All that stuff, exactly. How do I speak to customers? It's exactly the same. You've got to do that with these AI, these agents as well. No different.
Exactly. And the thing to kind of think about, so let's look at an example. So imagine you're purchasing from a business, and let's just say you get different kind of like proposals coming through. Let's say one task, and you've got like a junior team member who's just joined now, who looks at it and says, yeah, it looks fine to me, basically, right? And you've got a senior person that reviews, is like, no, this is no good because it's got this clause, and this clause, basically. And if we order from them, we're going to have an issue if it's delayed or whatever it is. They're not guaranteeing delivery on time or whatever. But the junior person didn't know because like it looks about right, basically. So the difference is the imprecision in their decision making and their judgment, basically. So an AI agent, for example, would replicate the decision making of the expert, basically. So it'd be able to analyze it across the criteria, like which is tuned and set up specially for you. So it's like, for example, okay, does it meet this criteria? Does it have this? Does it protect us against this? Does it fit with our other policies for this? Is this? And then the AI agent would be configured and it would review all that according to the way you want it and do it that way. Now, if you try to do that in just GPT, you could type in anything and it wouldn't really tell you anything, if that makes sense. The point I'm trying to make here is like, if you want your team doing stuff, you can't be teaching them lots of different things to remember. That is not going to work. What you want is to have like specific AI workflows which only do it the way you want to be done and to a higher standard. And then it's just like, producing and then getting more stuff done, basically. And that's why I think it's so important to like be investing and building, and configuring your own solutions, because that's what's going to make the difference. That's
Yeah, so let me pick up on that. So I always talk about SaaS is essentially, if you think about a SaaS business, B2B SaaS, fantastic because highly scalable. That's why VCs, venture capital firms love it. But what they really want you to do, think of it like a bell curve. So the top of that bell curve, the binomial curve, there's a feature set, which is the optimal one. It's the feature set, the features and benefits that work for the highest total addressable market, essentially. That's what they want to do. Now, if you're at the edges, an outlier, because you do things differently, you do things in a slightly idiosyncratic way, it doesn't really work for you. So what tends to happen is you tend to have one SaaS that does half of the job, you bolster on another one, you're using some kind of Zapier or Make to connect the two. It's not optimal. But with agents, it's quite different. Your agent can do things in the way, exactly the way you want to do it, even if you're right at the edge of either side of that bell curve. I think that's the difference, is that, as Alex said, you don't want to be just running another spell check in a business because everyone's going to have it.
What's another word for the middle of the normal distribution? Average.
Exactly. Or median.
Not median. Do you want that? Like, do you want everything to be just average? If you want that, then use like, basic stuff, basically. But if you actually want to step away from the pack, that's where you actually get all the wins and all the benefits, basically. That's when you have to have like, your own stuff, basically, right? Like, and I think that's the advantage, because as you said before, with the exponential curve, the fact you can actually step ahead, you can then accelerate and start going, hop off the escalator and go into the lift.
It's quite interesting. I saw it was Mark Andreessen. He's one of the co-founders of Andreessen Horowitz, and he was a founder of Mozilla and then co-founder of Netscape. And he was saying, I've actually copied the quote, and he was saying that a lot of SaaS companies they see now, because one of the biggest investors on the West Coast, they say, oh, we do this, and this. Oh yeah, and we do AI. And he's kind of like, they've kind of bolted it on. And he made a good quote, which I'm going to borrow and put it out on social media, is that a lot of these companies are taking flour and they're trying to force flour into a cake that's already been baked. And it's not going to work. So you're going to see a lot of even these big SaaS companies, I think, potentially are going to be the Kodaks of software.
Let me give an example. So you talk about CRM, right? So you email a person, you then open up the CRM saying, yeah, I emailed this person, basically, like, and type that in. Let's like, okay, I had a call with this person. Okay, let me log it open. I had a call with this person, whatever it is. Compare that to an agent team, for example.
And here are some notes on that.
Yeah, and here are some notes of what I could remember, and it could be bothered to type, basically, right? Like, because that's the whole point. But I'm busy to do the next call. Versus, like, if an agent team did the phone call or was listening to the phone call, whatever, all the notes automatically are there. All the details are there, all the nuances are there. So you could then actually search afterwards saying, what were they most interested in? And it could tell you, basically. So you didn't have to update a CRM.
It's not even notes. You've got the entire conversation.
And the intent and the emotion and their past conversations. Like, how was this compared to previous ones? So you can see that it's like, it's a difference between like a paddling pool and Olympic swimming pool, or whatever you want to call it, basically, right? Like it's you can't compare the two, but they both have water in it, basically, and you can have a bit of a splish splash. But the question is what you're trying to do.
So let's talk about what they can and can't do. So we're quite clear on the fact that AI today can't really do jobs. Okay, it can complete tasks that aggregate to form a workflow and part of a job. And the skill is to string them together, make them collaborate, so that you actually create a workflow that hopefully there were no breaks in it that need human intervention. That just slows it down. So that's the key to it. So the question is, what tasks can they automate? And that's what's changing quickly. And the gaps between them are beginning to close, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, there's also like things that you can do that now that you couldn't do before. But like, there's a lot of jobs actually where they are 80% one task or 80% two tasks, basically, right? Like, and then if you're trying to like scale up those departments, where it might be for phone calls, reviewing CVs, it might be like like checking for prices on different things. It could be ordering, it could be following up on the status of stuff, it could be tracking where all these things are delivered or not, or reaching out to people because something's delayed. You can have agentic workflows and systems which could actually do a lot of those different things, basically. Because if it's like monitoring a data stream of basically did something get delivered or not, yes or no, is the DHL status like this, or monitoring the price of something or not. Here are 20 different suppliers for the alcohol, ethanol, and glycol, whatever, like this, like tub of it for 5 liters. What's the price of it at all those places, basically? There's a lot of things that you can actually have systems for.
Remind me never to go shopping with you. But just on that though. So just explain that. So I have this theory that there's a product there. We don't quite know what it. And the AI agents kind of do it. The agents, which is this CRM overlay. The CRM is typically another tool. It's usually a SaaS. It's quite flat. It's got kind of a memory. It's not brilliant because you've got to summarize everything. You're seeing people like Salesforce and Agentforce trying to sort of implement, but they're trying to protect the core business really. And it's all quite complicated and quite expensive. But essentially, with the CRM overlay, you have all this conversational, unstructured information that you can now use, which you couldn't use before. Just explain though the difference between a 2D database and a vectorized, what I call like a 3D database, because that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. So the thing is, like, the 100-meter sprint is not won by like a 10-meter increment, right? It's won in fractions of a second, basically. And that's the difference between gold and not even getting a medal at all, basically, right? So it's all about the small differences. All industries are super competitive. Like you've got the smartest people working very hard, and the lines are typically set that payroll is this much, operational cost is this much, all this kind of stuff, right? So that was all kind of fixed essentially. But the thing is, like, right now, like, if you can have more insight and more data, you can make better decisions and better questions, and better follow-ups. You can then, start to eke your way up and actually convert much, much better, basically. Because, for example, if you're relying on team members that when they remember to type in notes into the CRM after a phone call about what they were interested in, what they were not doing, and then that person leaves, right? And a new person joins and they're reviewing the notes from the previous one. People type at 25 to 40 words a minute. So they might have even written 10 words or 15 words about notes of whatever it is. And the new person who's never heard that conversation, never seen anything, has this much information about that person, basically, versus a different system where you've actually got the full conversation within there, basically, right? And it's not just the full conversation in terms of transcript, it's also a searchable conversation, but like what things did they like, what things they dislike. So this is where you could actually search in dimensions around, likes, dislikes, like you said, for example, like if you're searching in a normal database, you search for like panini, basically, right? And it would show you panini or nothing, basically, right? But if you type in panini, it would also show you similar things, sandwich, like pie, pasty, and burrito, whatever, basically, right? Because they're semantically similar to it. But the point is, in the second scenario, if someone's got access to all of that memory, they could actually listen to part of the call if they wanted to, and they could also summarize, like, what would this person be interested in, and if our product meets these things, what matches what they're looking for and what doesn't. You're able to help that person have a very high resolution conversation for the first time with someone they never met before because of all that stuff. And if you think about any business where new people get turned over every single year, basically, you're recruiting new, employees for the same tasks and stuff like that. Basically, your information is being degraded constantly, basically, right? If you are even keeping any. And so the difference between an organization which has got, agentic memory for everything, essentially, and those that are just like relying on the notes that were made before, it's going to compound night and day, basically.
Yeah, I think Absolutely right, and people don't quite understand the power of that. So
They're
now, rather than
constantly.
having notes or fields that you've been first name, last name, email, when's their birthday, all this kind of stuff, you can actually now have in your memory have entire conversations, several conversations, many conversations, and use all of that sort of value that's included in there that's typically being missed.
One of our
So
one of our agents basically is a real-time sales coach, and what it will actually do is live during a conversation, it will pull up the relevant unstructured information from your database, which will tell you they are interested in this, they didn't like this, you discussed this last time, these are the product that they're showing the most interest in, here's all the specifications of this product. I was talking with a different business, completely different sector this week, and they were explaining how they've got like salespeople that have to, when they're trying to have a call, there's like almost 60 to 70 dimensions of data which they're supposed to have insight onto, and they don't have insight on those things. But if they were able to have that insight live, that would make the difference. So, people don't know, like if they've only ever seen a torch, right? They don't know what a floodlight is, basically, right? And I think that's the difference here, basically.
So let's talk about this. Going back to agents and tools, then. So with these software tools, essentially, you've got people operating, haven't you? But then talk about sort of how you onboard people. So that comparison we use between humans and an agent, which is why we that's why we landed on managed agents, because this idea of download Peter or Tracy
Yeah,
who will
yeah.
go and do some job in your company is overselling nonsense. And anyone telling you an agent can do that is trying to pull a fast one and get you to sign up to probably a per seat plan, which is not something that we actually do. So just talk us through the difference between, well, actually the similarity between human onboarding and an agent onboarding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because the thing is, like, what we need to do is like think about like how you would onboard a person. What's the script they would have, what's the different details they would have, what's the roles, what's the criteria they need to have. And then what we would then do is we then translate that so that the agent will then behave in that way, basically. Because the thing is, if you actually ask someone to be able to like configure them, it's going to be very difficult. And the other thing is people also like they think something is good in terms of a script or something, but actually it's not, because there's a lot of things you have to understand in terms of like conversation design, analysis, what confuses the AI or what makes it be specific. Putting a lot of information, just general information, isn't necessarily helpful, right? Like you can actually like confuse people, you can also confuse systems. So we abstract all that away and we will just like say like, okay, what you're trying to do, let's set it up for you, let's get the thing going from there, and you can work with that way, basically. Because otherwise it really, there's a lot of things that someone has to understand in terms of like, how do you do prompt engineering? How do you have conversation design? How do you understand psychology? How do you understand how to access vectorized database? How do you understand what information you would have within the personality and the prompt of it? What would you have within a database next to it? There's a lot of things people understand. So what we do is just make it easy. Like, what do you want it to do? How do you want it to do it? What should it do afterwards? Okay, let's set that up for you, basically, right? So you can get that working.
And a lot of companies, what we found is don't really have the resource to think about all this. Is why it helps someone to do it for you. But what quite interesting thing I find is that tools in a software as a service, it comes with a manual. It says, look, this is what it does, this is how you do it, and here's our FAQ, knowledge base, whatever it is, of how you actually use it. Large language models, we don't actually know how they work. It's like a human. You don't really know
But
how
for tasks,
you do a macro level, not a micro level. You don't make something, how a human works, but you don't know what makes them tick. So that's the difference as well, isn't it? Is actually there's no manual for this technology. You've got to use it in ways, and actually use it in ways other people perhaps haven't thought of, and that's where the competitive advantage kicks in.
exactly, because that's where you got unique stuff, basically. So like obviously the solutions we've put together, there are ways that you use it, there are known ways to kind of do it and stuff like this. But the thing is, having stuff which other people don't even have access to, where you can get stuff information in real time, or you can access all the information about the past conversations in real time. These are things that are going to make the difference, basically. And this is the concept, the AI operating system, essentially, appears, isn't it? Right? Like the whole point is like
Now,
in your
before you go to that though, because I know you're dying to go onto that, is just talk about the last bit of this puzzle, I guess, is that so now you've got that layer of tools, let's call it software as a service, and then a lot of the humans operating are going to disappear. So that's why the model's going to have to evolve from per seat. You have agents interacting with it. But the agents increasingly, as the technology improves, they can do the underlying tasks. You don't need some
correct.
software to help you prioritize what your team should be doing. You just say, this is what we're doing. Here's the team. That's how you can communicate with them. This is our objective. This
I'll
is a
give you an example.
timeline. Build a plan.
Give an example, human person making phone calls. You have a dialer software, right? So you've got that. You got the CRM of all the notes that you made on everything like that, and then you're then like calling as many people as possible and doing that basically from the phone system. Versus an AI agent, it will call them all automatically. It's got its own built-in dialer. CRM, it keeps a note of all the conversations, everything. It can push it to your CRM as well, basically. And the third thing is like all the full transcripts of everything, any analysis afterwards can be done as well, basically by itself directly to say, was this person interested or not? What's the next action?
So what you're going to see then, what the point I'm getting to is that eventually it's going to collapse. You won't have a layer of software application or software as a service. You'll just have teams of agents doing it for you and instructing them in natural language, typically in
Or
English.
assisting your team in real time, like almost like a kind of like a wingman, basically, right? You know, like in the same way.
Which brings us neatly onto your favorite subject, the AI OS. So the idea here is that yes, you can use your flour that you're trying to push into a fully baked cake using applications or adding SaaS. It's quite basic, and you can sort of tweak around the edges, adding AI. But what you want to do fundamentally to really step onto that exponential curve is to look at your business. And it's easy if you're a smaller company. Look at it, say, right, how do we rewrite how we operate using this technology, and not the tech to just today? Think about where it's going, how it's going to evolve, and how you can implement that as well. And that's what you're then building, is an AI operating system, which is something which completely transforms your business and completely transforms your competitive edge.
Here's an analogy: zero-based budgeting. What's that? It's where you're basically like thinking each year, starting for, there's no budget for anything, and we're only going to put a budget for the things which we actually think we absolutely need to do. So everything needs to fight for its place in the budget, otherwise it doesn't happen, basically. So in the same way, zero-based thinking is like, okay, if we were restarting exactly the same business today, but doing it AI first, what would that look like, basically? Like, like what would the interactive customer experience be at the beginning? What would be the onboarding? What conversations would the AI agents be having beforehand, either by text, by voice, by email, or on websites, which then it feeds into the team members that meet with them afterwards? What does the proposal look like in an AI first world? What does like the actual meeting look like? What does the post call follow up look like? What does like the menu, the manual look like? Does it have to be a PDF? Could it not be an avatar talking and explaining stuff to you? And it's like, what have you got? Send me a photo of how far you've got with this, and I'll work out the details and send you the details from there. So the whole point here is, like, as you said, if you reimagine your business and basically think that, okay, what would this look like if it was built AI first? And what could I enhance? What could I eliminate? And this is that blue ocean strategy stuff, basically, right? Like, where it's like, what can I do in excess of the competition, where it's like a standard that never could be done before? What can I eliminate, which isn't necessarily needed? And what can I how can I create a price value breakthrough so it's even more affordable and even more powerful than other people? And what stuff could I implement, which like as a tool for my customers, or as a kind of like almost like as a Trojan horse, basically, where they would use it more, you learn more about them, and then it becomes more useful to them. So different ways to add value for them. As a give an example, let's say you're a law firm for employment law. You could give them lots of tools and agents, basically, which helps and sits alongside when they're doing interviews, and it could flag them in real time, things which might be an issue, or things which might be a red flag, or things that need to be careful of, or claims or promises that were made by previous people that shouldn't have been done. Things like that, right? So rather than dealing with stuff after the fact, it's helping prevent things up front, basically. So,
but also, like, what you tend to have a lot of businesses is, as I was saying, these tools, they don't quite do what you want to do the way you want to do it. So what tends to happen is you'll have 4 tools, and what these tools do in terms of trying to grow their businesses, they start doing one thing, like CRM, for example, and they go, oh, hang on a minute, let's do a sales automation, let's do
email automation,
let's do support.
Yeah.
So they all try and do what everyone else is doing. So, and what happens is you end up with 4 applications that you're using 25% of to get one thing done. And that's going to change. I think you're going to see that you can now pick off and train, as we've talked about, agents instead of tools that do things exactly the way you want to do it.
And they evolve.
And they evolve, yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is SaaS has a static skill set generally. The agents could do more and more over time.
Well, they add features, don't they? The technology has already changed.
But
they
not
add
much.
features.
But not much.
But then you get this, like, I mean, I've done this for years, using software applications or purchasing and doing RFPs, which one to use, and the complexity of them just drives you insane. And you always realize that, like, it's anything really. If you use Teams, I use Teams. I think we're a bit of a power user. You probably use 10% of what it can actually do.
Of course.
Or any software like that. So with agents, you can do more of a rifle shot as well. So the AIOS is your holy grail in terms of where you want your business to get to.
It's your roadmap.
Yeah. So we're up to 35 minutes. We'll probably try and leave it there. So really, the idea of today was to try and get you to, if you want to take away something actionable, is to start thinking about what tools am I using, right? Why am I using them? What are they costing me? How much of them am I using? How many people am I paying to operate these tools? And
Correct.
take all of that and say, well, hang on a minute. If I could automate that task or that workflow, that process,
Or store all of the insights from it as well.
and store the insights. So yeah, exactly. There's different dimensions. Isn't there? One is what can I replace and take out in terms of
What can I
cost and
augment?
complexity. But you just said there, actually, when you're using your vectorized database and this unstructured conversational information that you can store now, what value am I creating in terms of my customer experience, my marketing improvement, the improvements in my content? Just let's face it, it's all about cost. It's about understanding your customer. So we're a big proponent in, you're going to see, I think that the tools, the software as a service, I always use, I don't know if you remember this, Aalok, I'm a bit older than you, eFax.
I heard about it. Yeah.
So I heard about it. Don't make me laugh.
Even once, I think I sent a fax by email once. There was a whole. I'm not even going to go there.
That's it. There we had fax, which I remember. I used to have a fax at home. I thought it was cool. Then you had email, and the two couldn't talk. So now you had an email could come out of the fax. You could send the fax, and they got it as an email. Fantastic technology for about 2 years, and then obviously fax died. And you're going to see that those layer of tools of complexity, and all these feature things you don't really use. Eventually, it will collapse, and you will see that will be the eFax of technology. Whew. Let's talk about AI of the week. Now, if you haven't used this, even you can use it for serious purposes because it just gives you an idea of where this technology is going. So they're doing things like this podcast and creating content, but also you can have some fun with it as well. And usually we just do AI for business, but this is one where its application's not crystal clear yet, but just like an AI, it's a worst ever going to be. You can see where it's going. So it's Google Notebook LM. Sign up. It's free. It's alpha, beta, whatever they call it, and you basically upload a document or video URL, whatever it might be, and then after about a couple of minutes, it will turn that into a pretty realistic podcast conversation called the deep dive there's a female presenter and a male presenter, and they have a conversation about your document. Now, you can upload your business plan, you can upload an essay your kids have done. I've done all of this actually, or you can upload something mundane or like your bank statement or a restaurant bill, and then ask it to talk about it, and they'll create a podcast about any document, and it'll be quite engaging, even your bank statement. So go and have a play with it, and just when you're doing it and you're listening to that podcast, it's very easy to forget that it's not real, it's created by AIs, and just think about where this technology is today, and therefore where it's going to be in 1, 3, 5, 10 years, which, let's face it, if you're running a business, you should be thinking at least ahead 3 years. And most technology in AI now, I think, a lot.
Also,
There's a fog after 2 years that you can't see through.
I'm going to introduce something. Like the value of a non-AI driven business is going to drop.
Yeah, 100%.
So whatever you think that like your business could be worth or on the trajectory, if the world is shifting from underneath you 3 years from now, it's not going to be as appealing to someone versus someone who's already got the AI operating system and everything in place.
Yeah, so we are building implement AI. We suffer from the typical entrepreneur thing where we're building for the people. We need to implement it ourselves quite often, but we are working towards having our own AI OS. And you're absolutely right. My background's corporate finance, M&A, law, banking, venture capital. And when someone's conducting due diligence on your business, and you could get away with before, it's all paper and bits of tape and rubber and elastic bands. Yeah, but don't worry, we're going to fix it. A business now that has got an AOS, which is pretty much automated as far as it can be, and they're looking at what's next. And upgradable, exactly that. So they're seeing what's coming next. We can implement AI across more tasks and workflows. They're going to be worth a lot more, not because they're just doing it for the sake of it. It looks cool, because they're going to have higher margins. They're going to be more profitable. And let's not forget, this works with big companies as well. There's going to be less risk. Now, people think AI introduces risk, ethics, data, content. People, yeah, you beat me to it. You look at cybersecurity, the biggest risk is not often technology, there's training as well, it's people and how you deal with them. So this is going to be an enormous game changer. So our view is look at your tools, look at your SaaS, and and work out how could you use AI and agents to automate that, reduce risk, reduce your costs, boost your growth, and create a more, and most important point you said there, Aalok, is create a more valuable business.
I'll give you a slight tangent, but you linked to people risk. Do you know one of the easiest ways that I was hearing about someone like hacking different companies, like big companies? You know what they do? They leave these pen drives, like a USB stick, in the parking lot, a few of them thrown around, and it says "My Photos" just written on it, just "My Photos" in a pen with a sticker. And then employees will take that, stick it into the computer to see what photos are these, basically. And already you've installed some software within there. So like, it just shows you like all sorts of risk and different things.
But it's also, think about phishing. So phishing used to be send out a pretty generic email to millions of people, or thousands of them, and hopefully someone's half asleep. They don't understand, what cyber risks are. Or it's your mum who's just going to click on anything. My mum, although now she doesn't. Now she rings me up, and they click on it, and 1 in a million click on it, and boom, you can do what you need to do to being a bad actor. With AI, it's different. With AI, if you've got 10,000 targets, you're not going to get 2 or 3 clicking on it because they made a mistake. You're going to have 10,000 individually, completely personalized phishing attempts based on who you are, your name, what you do, where you live, what your favorite food is from Facebook.
Which companies you interact with.
Yeah, who your parents are.
Stuff like that.
Could be your mum ringing you with your mum's voice asking for some money. So that's the danger of this, and the tools we have are not quite up to dealing with that. So it may be that in that, and again, we're going slightly off piste here, but in that arms race in terms of cyber and security and protecting your data and your bad actors, exactly. Tools ain't going to cut it. You're going to have to put AIs up against AIs.
And that's the thing, like you said, then it becomes a more secure workflow. But I agree with you.
I did a keynote on my website actually for one of the world's largest cybersecurity companies, and after I chatted to senior management, and I was like, in the future, obviously, a lot of this malware is going to be created by AI. And he said, and they all looked at each other and started laughing. And looked at me. I thought, no, we're not quite, Piers. It's worse than that. I said, what do you mean? They said, the AI, the malware will be an AI. I was like, oh god. So again, on the exponential curves, when you think you know something, the people in the know, like Sam Altman, the quote we gave earlier, they really do know where this is going and what the challenges are going to be. Right, that's it for today. We're up to 42 minutes. We know you're busy running your businesses. So again, please rate and leave a comment or a review of the podcast. Sign up for the AI Insider. We'll get one out this week covering some of the points we've talked about today. Read our white paper, especially the one on putting AI to work. And follow us on LinkedIn. We put a lot of content out there, especially Aalok, in terms of demos and real world insights. And if you like the show, please do share it, and let's build this community. Anything else, Aalok?
All good.
Well, enjoy your trip to India. And this is it for this week. This is the AI Assisted Organization podcast. Myself, Piers Linney, and Dr. Aalok Shukla. We'll see you again next week.
See ya.